You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now.
Hey everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with a young, upcoming gentleman and bassist, Matthew Jazwinski, known as Mateyko.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, there's a lot to talk about, but I always like to get started knowing a little bit about your journey in the realm of music and on bass. How did you get started?
Yeah, so my brother Joseph, he's in college. He's studying at DePaul University. We started on classical guitar, and we kind of went through the whole Suzuki program and some classical guitar programs. And it wasn't a proper fit for me. I just wasn't the type of child to be learning how to read music and to be learning classical music. So I went to a local guitar shop, Consolidated Music in Barrington, Illinois, and I picked up a electric guitar, and I loved playing rock and roll guitar. And then I went to a kind of a school of rock program type called Rockstar 101 at the store. One of the instructors, Mario, handed me a bass and was like, "Hey, I'll let you play in all of the bands. We need a bass player, as everybody knows bass players are hard to come by." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do it. It's easier. It's 4 strings." Yeah. I mean, so that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of realizing how interesting and how important the bass was, and how much, some little things are easier, a lot of things are harder on the bass. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of led me down, to get really into rock and roll, whether it be, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, all the way to the White Stripes, the Ramones, the Beatles, of course. But around middle school, I started getting into a little bit more hip hop and a little bit more into jazz fusion rock, like Snarky Puppy. Mm-hmm. And that kind of really transformed my taste in music from kind of rock and roll into jazz. So listening to certain people like Kendrick Lamar or A Tribe Called Quest, that kind of hearing all the jazz samples was like, wait a minute, jazz music is kind of cool. It isn't like some like hoity-toity music. And then I realized how interesting jazz was. So throughout my underclassmen years in high school, I started to take jazz seriously. And then about sophomore year, I took the upright bass really seriously. And then I transferred to a performing arts high school. And now I'm here.
Excellent. And you're referring to the Chicago Academy of the Arts?
Yep. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Chicago Academy for the Arts. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the school, because I know not everybody's going to be acquainted about it. I think whenever we hear a high school that has performing arts, we all think about the old movie, Old for You, Fame. So, mm-hmm. So is that kind of what it's like, or?
So basically, how it's structured is that, well, I guess I'll start with my schedule. So 8:30 to 1:20 is normal academics, math, science, English, foreign language. Then after, from 1:30 to 4:30 every day, the whole school has their arts portion of the day. And at the school, there's musical theater, there's theater like acting, there's media arts, visual arts, and those include writing, filmmaking, animation, and then there's music, which is obviously the department I'm in. Usually how it works out, we have 3 chunks. I'm in a ear training and theory class, I'm in a composition class, and I'm in a chamber ensemble with another cello player. There's about roughly 20 people in the department, I believe, last time I checked. And there's vocalists, there's string players, guitar players, there's 2 saxophone players and 2 percussionists. It's a very broad environment. Because the school allows people to come from all over the Chicagoland area, I take an hour metro commute every day. And because there's people that live right in the city, a few blocks from the school, there's people that live even farther from me, from the opposite side of the area. Mm-hmm. And there's just a lot of really different types of people that come. And it's just really interesting to see compared to like my local high school. It's super fun there. It's very intensive, though.
Gotcha. I guess it makes for a long day. So you leave at what time in the morning and get home?
Yeah, so I wake up around 6 o'clock, and then I catch a 6:57 train, which I guess around 6:57, 7 o'clock. And then it gets to Ogilvy Transportation Center at 8 o'clock. And then 8:15, a bus picks us up. And then I have school from 8:30 to 4:30. And sometimes we have an opera team at that school. We have a new music ensemble which is bizarre experimental music. It's not for everybody, but it's if you're into it, you really love it. And then right now we were just donated an entire brand new recording studio. So I have private lessons for not only bass, but also for recording studio stuff at the school. So I'm learning how to use digital audio workstations, learning how to mic, drum kits, guitars, basses, vocals, all the essential recording stuff.
Very cool. Well, and it's so great that that's available for you, because so many people, they might have the talent, they might have the desire, but those programs don't exist everywhere. So, you're in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. And this is the first year, so it's a little interesting because a lot of our finals for the music department were moved up because we're in the middle of a recording immersion where the engineering teacher, Jack, he just got out of college. He's really up to date with knowing how kids my age learn. And he's a great teacher, and we're all learning from him how to use stuff like Pro Tools, Ableton, how to program MIDI software, how to record stuff. And we're learning all of that. And it's just such an amazing program that I'm so thankful that is at that school. It's very rare that any school has this update of a program. A man named Justin Tranter donated all of that. He's an alumni of the music department, and he's been writing stuff for big pop names, Imagine Dragons, Justin Bieber. I mean, you name it, he's probably written for somebody in the music industry. And he was amazing enough to donate all this stuff to the school. And yeah, I'm just super happy and thankful that I have all this, and all the students have this at our disposal.
Also mention that on top of that, because you're not just dedicated to academics, you're also very active at playing some charity functions, because you have a congenital heart thing called tetralogy of Fallot, which we won't go into the medical details of necessarily, but this has also led you to play a lot of hospital for the Ann and Robert and Hillary Children's Hospital.
It used to be named something along the lines of like Memorial Children's Hospital way back when. Not too long ago, they moved to Lurie Children's Hospital, just a brand new state-of-the-art hospital. I've been going to the same hospital since I was born. I was born with heart defects. I have a pacemaker. I've undergone open heart surgery. I've had 3 replacement pacemaker surgeries. It's, although having a congenital heart defect isn't like the most fun thing in the world. I can't go through metal detectors. Yeah. I could never play football with my friends as a kid, or soccer, or whatever you name it. If anything, it's a blessing in disguise because I'm able to play with all of these charity events. And I've been playing with an older rock band for the past 5 or so years, but now I'm moving on to my own jazz groups, and we're playing at really high-class events now.
I know with having the limitations of not being able to do all the physical stuff, but having the musical world of creation open to you, certainly is a great outlet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, especially as a kid, I would skateboard, I would bike, I would longboard, and that's fun because they're relatively safe, especially compared to football. But it's also that I had a lot of time to work on music too. And that's why I think I fell in love with music so much, is because it was so readily available that I could just pick up an instrument and start playing. And like, anybody can do that, but especially at a kid where I grew up, that the town is just so football oriented that almost everybody has played football. Like, all kids my age have played football. And it's just really interesting for me to kind of look back and say, like, I never did that. But it's really fortunate because I'm playing the bass now at the school, and everything's just been going great for me, thankfully. I'm so blessed for it. And it's all because of this heart condition.
It's sometimes, and we've seen some major performers. I mean, you think of people like Stevie Wonder, you think of Jose Feliciano, you think of people that maybe had a condition or something going on, and they excelled in ways that go beyond what perhaps other people that maybe took music for granted and didn't work at it so hard or try so hard. That is too cool. Speaking of music, tell us a little bit about your gear. What gives you your voice? What are you playing on?
Yeah, so I've been playing, there's a luthier that goes under the name Ripsky. He's made stuff. He just recently made a bass for Stanley Clarke. So this is a Ripsky bass. This is like kind of one of my first real professional quality basses. It's a custom build by him. He does amazing work. It's got an Aguilar preamp, a kill switch. Back when I bought this, I was a horrible noodler. And these are hand-wound pickups, hip shot hardware, bird's eye maple, fingerboard, and matching pickups. It's an ash body because I got this around in the middle of middle school. Right now I'm about 6 feet and I grew a bunch. So when I got this, I was just a scrawny little kid that needed to have the lightest instruments. And especially because the more strings you add on a bass, the heavier it gets. So yeah, I think the most interesting thing about this is that because Ripsky is such a cool guy, he was, if I can get this in camera,
sure.
See, but there is an inlay
Yes.
of my EKG.
Very cool.
My heartbeat on the headstock. So I play this a lot for a lot of straight ahead jazz stuff if I'm not playing my upright bass. I'm also playing on the other side. I'm playing a 6-string modulus right now.
Okay.
Yeah. On the Ripsky, I have some labella strings, just some great flat wounds, just to have a really nice jazzy sound. So for this, I've been Thinner Cat is probably a great inspiration for me, so I made sure to get super light gauge, a 6-string set from also Labella. This bass is really something interesting. Teal Burbridge of Denon Company. I've been going to a camp in the New York Catskills for the past 5 years now, I believe. And I've really gotten to know him as a friend, and he's been one of my best mentors. We've gotten in talks, and I've been in need for a 6-string bass, and he was so kind enough to lend me this. So this is one of his old signature models, and it's honestly one of my favorite basses I've ever played. Not only just because it has kind of, the mojo of Teal Burbridge. He's played for the Allman Brothers. He's played for so many people. But, the funny thing is that it's super road worn too. And, you see a lot of like basses that are like scratched up in the factory. But, you can see certain things. There's, some chips here, some cracks, whatever you name it. But if anything, that makes it super unique to the bass itself. So this is my main electric bass. This is what I've always been playing. This is what I've been mostly playing on recently, especially because I've been getting into, a lot of chordal work, a lot of really fast finger picking, a lot of soloing up on the high C string. This has kind of been my main bass for now.
And with it being a modulus, you probably save on weight as well.
Yeah, so this graphite neck, not only, if anything, it's a little top heavy because it's Oteil's model is a hollow body. You can see the F-fold. I think the really unique thing about graphite is that, especially for chordal work, all the sound is consistent. The whole tone wood debate online, I'm not going to 100% confirm this because tone wood is a very, very touchy subject. With graphite, as far as I know, that playing chords on it is really great because you have such a consistent sound throughout the neck. So just with this material, all chords that you make, it has the same tonality throughout the whole neck. which is great. So I have a super consistent sound, and with this preamp, is also really fun. I have treble bass, mids, and I think this is pretty similar for all the models. I think it's just the Modulus Quantum model, but then there's a mids knob, and then there's a frequency shifter for the mids under it, and then pickup blender and volume, which is super awesome.
There's a lot of controversies when it comes to many topics in bass. The fact that you're playing 6 strings at all would upset half a dozen people because they're like, oh, Jocko needed only 4. So why would you have to have 6 strings? And it comes back to nobody makes anybody play anything. If you want to play 4, you play 4. If you play 6, you do that. If you play with a graphite neck, as compared to other tonal woods, or it's all that variety is what gives people a particular voice, and what's right for one person may not be good for another.
And especially just as a young musician, you come across a lot of people that may have different ideas, because especially just with oh, well, Jack only needed 4 strings, insert bass player here, Victor Wynn only needed 4 strings, Marcus only needed 5, you don't need 6. You're just playing the guitar, which is ridiculous, because not ridiculous, but it's in a funny way, because I just feel like music is just something where you need to share, and express yourself. Any way you can express yourself is amazing. If it takes 6 strings to express all the thoughts that I need, then that's just the way it is. I can do, for the most part, what I want on 4 strings, but 6 strings is just something else, And that's why I'm really glad that Back to the High School has the whole audio engineering program, because people learning how to make electronic music is another form of expression musically, which that's why whenever, I see someone with even a 7 or 8 string bass, when it gets that ridiculous, you see some people like Robert Bubby Lewis that, have those basses.
Yeah.
I just love to see it, because it's just new musical ideas that normally wouldn't be heard, and you have people that are really out and that are really in the top of the bass world, especially popularity wise, people like Fendercat, they play on 6 strings, and it works for them because they express all the ideas that they want. I mean, I grew up on 4 strings. Every bass player started on 4 strings for the most part. The majority of my basses are 4 strings. It's just that I feel like 6 strings, you have them when they're there, but you don't want to overpower or overuse the B string and the C string, because then it gets too much. And I only use these for solos, or for when I'm in a key B flat or something, or D, or I use the high C whenever I'm soloing. And other than that, making good music's the goal for me. If it takes 6 strings, then so be it,
There you go.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, anybody to do it is okay with me.
Oh, I agree, but it's funny because the community sometimes gets a little militant, I will say, and the same is true about using a pick, because there are people that play with picks and there's people that don't play with picks, and it's kind of do your thing. I mean, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and I used to be on the side where I hated people who play with picks, because I was like, dude, drop the pick, we get it, you played guitar before, and I used to be that guy, but I really play with a pick anyway, just because a lot of the time that's not what I'm looking for. But when I do, I'm realizing that the pick does have a lot to offer. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a crutch for some people, but certain times a pick is definitely the preferred sound. There's nothing wrong with playing a pick, or even so much technique. Sometimes I see some people play with some bizarre technique, and I'm like, oh, what is this? But then I realize they're making music and they're having fun and they're enjoying it. So I can't rain on their parade. It's really horrible of people to do that.
And the fact that the electric bass is such a relatively new instrument compared to your upright, compared to so many others, and it's the growth process, the evolution is happening before our very eyes, and people, I think, have to kind of accept that, it's going to constantly change, and people are going to constantly look at doing it better. We had the privilege of seeing one of the original electric basses, and I don't know, here, let's see how your musical history is, if you've heard of Paul Tootmark out of Seattle.
Describe his bass to me. I think I know what you're talking about.
And actually we have a video. You'll be able to see it on Bass Musician Magazine. We went up to Seattle to the music experience up there, but one of the curators had one of Paul Tootmark's original basses, and it was originally made for a woman. So it's kind of a short scale, 4-string. The instrument cable is permanently connected to it, so it doesn't...
Right. Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that bass.
Plug in.
Yeah.
And when you look at them, you go, okay, that was the idea. And if they hadn't have tried to do anything different, they hadn't have made a longer neck and given you more scale, more strings, I mean, you know, it's a work in progress, which is this is so fascinating for this to be our instrument. Amplification-wise, you have any particular gear that you like?
Right now, for the most part, I play through a dark glass head. I think it kind of sounds like a really bright Aguilar amp, but it has, with the microtube technology that it has, I just think it has some great distortion sounds. It just has a really, really wide variety. I love playing through Mark bass. I had the pleasure of getting a Mark bass amp I flew to Dallas for the Dallas International Guitar Festival. And Mark Bass was willing to send me a little practice amp. And even though it's just a tiny practice amp, I use it all the time in my room. Sometimes I keep the parents up a little late, but that's okay. And yeah, I'd say Mark Bass just has a really warm tone. It's one of those amps that, like, if you think of bass, I feel like you think of a Mark Bass amplifier being played through it. I mean, gear in general is kind of interesting to me because I do see a lot of arguments about, you know, tone wood or certain amps and stuff. But it gets to a point where, like, if I play bass or if I play through an amp and I like it, then I like it. I don't stay brand specific for now. I think for now for basses, I'd stay with Ripsky because I have such a great relationship with them, or Mindulous because of the consistency with the sound. But you get to a certain point with a lot of gear that it's kind of to each his own. And especially for me, like Mark bass is awesome. That's kind of like one of my personal favorites. Just because, you know, like, with Mark bass, there's such a variety of people that play. You got Michael Leake from Snarky Puppy, who plays, you know, really simple yet really challenging bass lines that really challenge the listener, but they make sense musically. But then you have people like Marcus Miller who play bright and flashy tone that, you know, make, you know, some of the bass players' favorite anthems. You know, just have such a variety of people playing through Mark bass amps, and that's why I really like Mark bass, I'd say.
Well, and having that versatility, especially because you're so, I'm going to say kind of early in the career, because you have so much ahead of you, that a lot of times I think the choice of gear will go with the kind of music that you're playing, the sound that you need. What you need for jazz is one thing. If you were doing death metal, you might need a different kind of sound. I mean, you know, there is certainly something to be said that a lot of people end up with what we call gear acquisition syndrome, GAS, because they do want that variety for all of these possibilities. Moving ahead, I know right now you're deep into your academics and busy with all that, but what do you see yourself doing in the future? What would you like to pursue?
There's always the whole stereotype of the starving musician, but I feel like in today's day and age, I just feel like especially with how amazing the school has been, I feel like I will get the education out of the academy to really push myself to become a great musician and be able to sustain myself. Hopefully. I mean, you know, everyone has their doubts, but I just think I'm at certainly the right school to become a professional musician. Nearly everybody in my department wants to become a professional musician, and I just think it'd be awesome to be going around touring, you know, making albums, just kind of being a musician and being a real artist. That's the end goal for me. That's always has been since I was probably 8 years old. For one of my first shows was seeing Victor Wooten live, and like after meeting him, you know, I just knew that this is gonna be awesome, you know. And back then, I wasn't like, I need to be a musician, I know exactly what I'm going to do. But probably this year and a little bit of mostly last year for applying to this new school, I'm realizing, this is the path I'm going down. And I have, you know, a few friends and, like, you know, people saying, like, well, Matthew, you're going to be poor. I'm like, I know, but I'm going to be having fun. You know, I'm going to be working tirelessly as a musician instead of working at a desk job and having fun on the weekends. You know, like, I'd rather be playing my butt off and getting all the work in and be trying to find a bunch of jobs and really hitting it off one day rather than settling down and having a little desk job or a business and then, you know, settle down and just have an easy life. I want to have, like, a really exciting, fun life with music. And I just really hope, right now, I've just kind of been riding a wave and just kind of have been letting things work out for now. And I want to get to that point where I'm going to be a professional musician and I'm going to be able to tour and write albums and still be able to kind of just ride with the wave and just kind of relax at the same time. But that doesn't come without a lot of hard work too. There's no doubt about that.
Well, and if I can share one bit, because I've had the great opportunity to chat with so many bassists and so many that are extraordinarily successful. Probably the one thing that keeps coming up, hard work is important, but a good attitude is probably going to be your greatest attribute, and the ability to get along, because when you think about it, you can get people that are proficient playing a line or playing, the pages, but you have to be able to get along with your bandmates and other people. And I can't tell you how many they'll tell you, yeah, you're on a tour bus, it's really nice, but you still have to get along with these people because you're with them, 24/7. You may be on stage a couple of hours out of a day, but it's all that rest of the time that you really have to get along, and that's what'll make or break you in this business. And with that, the best place, if people want to follow what you're doing,
MateykoMusic.com.
Got it. Anyway, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know this is the end of a long day for you. Folks, you've seen him here, Mateyko, on his way for what we're hoping to be a long and successful musical journey. We'll look forward to following it with you. You've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thanks for bassing out with us here on bassmusicianmagazine.com.